My name's Kay Rawlins. I'm the VP of Community Relations and the President of Orlando City Foundation. This is a great time to be involved in soccer. So I'm an ex-educator. Once I had my own children and realised how much I loved teaching them and being at home with them, I actually went back to college when I was 31 to pursue a degree in early childhood education. Loved doing that, and that's where I got my love for teaching children and getting them to learn to read, which is an absolutely big passion of mine. Reading is the key to life. If you can teach children from an early age to learn to love books, you open up such a whole world of possibility for them. How did I end up here is a really great question. My husband was living over in America. I was in England. We knew each other at school, reconnected. I was living in England, and he came over, swept me off my feet, and I ended up coming with him to live in America. We were both in a very fortunate position at the time, where we were trying to decide what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives. And guess what? We decided to start a soccer team. That's literally how it happened. We were sitting around our kitchen table, throwing some ideas around, and that was what we decided to do. And here we are, 5 years later, with an amazing team, and we have a women's team on the way, and we also have a reserve team. So it's an exciting time. So getting to this point after 5 years definitely hasn't been an easy journey. Anyone who's followed our trials and tribulations, either through the press or on our website, will know, we've had some ups and downs. Luckily, I am a very positive person, so I always believe everything will work out for the best. We've had some great people around us who've supported us, encouraged us, and I think that's just really, really important, to have a good team around you, not just the team on the field. You need those people who will fight for you and hold you up at the times when you think it's never going to work. But here we are, it did. We've had a lot of great parties along the way. When we announced MLS, we had a giant party on Church Street. When we did the groundbreaking, we closed down Church Street and walked through the streets with hundreds and thousands of fans and drums and music. It was so much fun. But yeah, it takes a team, and you need to support each other and help each other in any way that you can along the way. So there's definitely a balance, and it's hard for me certainly in my life with the soccer team, to not be the mom. You've got a team of boys. I mean, they're men, but they're boys. So it's hard to not get involved in that piece, especially we have players who come from so many different countries, and they're coming to an environment where, they have to find how to get a phone, how to find somewhere to live, how to get a car, how to take a driving test. Even Kaká had to go take his driving test here. No one's immune. So there's definitely a balance there, including our sons both work for the team. So that's certainly been an interesting dynamic of what do they call me, mom or Kay, in the office. And we've worked around that. It's great working with them. It's been amazing to share this journey so far with so many of my immediate family. They're involved in the team, so what could be better? When we first started the team, I was the only female in the office, so that was definitely an interesting time. I've never struggled to get their respect, because they know I know what I'm talking about. I've been in soccer now for the last, I think it's 10 years now. So I definitely get the respect I deserve, but I can tell you, I love having so many more women in the office now, and we have them in high places too. Our VP of marketing is a woman. So it's great having that dynamic back into the office. I've definitely enjoyed having the women around. Our VP of corporate sales calls me his velvet hammer. So when he's trying to clinch a deal and he's talking with corporate partners, he brings me in to talk about our community work and our foundation, and he always says that helps to seal the deal. I know it seems like the world at the moment, there's so many things bad happening, but I think soccer is a great way of bringing people together. It is the world's game. Every country plays soccer. I've traveled with my own kids, and I know all they have to do is get a ball out and start kicking it around, and some kids, whatever country you're in, will come and ask to join in. And I think as well, for this city, it's brought us all together. We have amazing supporters, and just one really quick story. I had someone reach out to me for some help, a family who had been given a house. They needed some help. They'd had a real tragedy in the family, and they were donated a house that really was dilapidated and needed sorting out. We reached out to our supporters, and lo and behold, we've had a new kitchen donated, we've had bathrooms donated, we've had all the paint donated, we've had new front door and windows, we've had 50 and 60 fans out there for 3 weekends in a row, working on that house, cleaning it, painting it, getting it ready for this family. And so it gives me hope that there are many, many, many good people out there in the world, and let's shine the light on them for a change instead of all the awful stories that we do here. It's really not that bad. It's a great place to be.
My name is Keyne Johnson. I am a pediatric neurosurgeon who I also operate on adults as well. And I was 3 years old when I realized that I wanted to help people for the rest of my life. And I knew that being a pediatric neurosurgeon was my destiny from the age of 12. At the age of 12, I was fortunate enough to be from Baltimore, Maryland, and there was a pediatric neurosurgeon who at that time separated conjoined twins, and that was the first of its kind in the United States. And it took a whole team of physicians, but he was the main physician, the lead neurosurgeon, and there was lots of publicity about this man. What was most astonishing to me was that this was a brown man. And where I'm from, again in Baltimore, this wasn't seen on TV. You didn't see a lot of brown men on TV that were doing this and getting this type of publicity. So that in and of itself, I was won over. And I looked at the TV, and I was watching it at the time with my father, and I looked at my dad, and I said, that's easy. I can do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, just like Ben Carson. And that was the pediatric neurosurgeon who separated the conjoined twins and who I said I was going to be like. And when I told my father that that's what I wanted to do, he said 3 words, "You sure can." So I had my father's approval. And so I never thought anyone else would tell me, "You sure can't." But I heard that quite often, over and over, every time I verbalized, I want to be a pediatric neurosurgeon. So after a while, I actually started to say, well, I just want to be a doctor, because especially when they heard neurosurgeon, brain surgeon, you're going to be that's too hard. That's, you have to do really well in school. You have to be really smart. You're not going to have a family. Don't you want children? Maybe you want to do something like teach or go into nursing. And so I thought about it and I said, well, no, that's not my passion. That's not what I was born to do. And so I I kept reminding myself of what my father said. Sometimes it just takes one person to encourage you, for you to hear those encouraging words, to allow yourself to put out all the negative words. Just one time, one person. And for me, it was my father. Had he not said that, would I be sitting here today? I hope to say that yes, I would. Would my road have been the same? I don't know. And I can't guarantee that it would. But I feel like we all have a destiny, and but how we get there is the difference. In school, I had a counselor, guidance counselor, who told me that once I asked me first, well, what do you want to do? What are your future goals? And I said, well, I want to be a pediatric neurosurgeon. And so I know I have to do 4 years of college and then 4 years of medical school and then eventually a residency to achieve this goal. And she looks at me and she says, that's too hard. I don't think that's a good choice for you. And she told me that once, and that was the last time I met with her. And when we were supposed to meet with our guidance counselors again during our senior year, I refused. And I sat outside on the bench and at my high school, and they called my mother and said, Keena's being basically insubordinate, and she's not meeting with the guidance counselor as all the students. It's a requirement. And my mother said, well, why is she not meeting with the guidance counselor? And they proceeded to tell her, well, I think there's been some misunderstanding and they're not quite agreeing. And so my mother said, well, I think it's because she's telling her one thing and my daughter is saying, no, I want to be what I want to be, and she's being discouraged to do so. And so my mother said, you let her sit right where she is, and I will pick her up this afternoon after school gets out, as I always do. And so that, again, was affirmation for me that, was I ever insubordinate? No. Did my mother ever get called to the school? No. She knew me. She knew I was a straight A student. I did my work. I played 3 sports. I sang in our choir. I was in the plays. I did everything. And so she knew that there must be a reason why she is adamant about not meeting with this guidance counselor. So I took it upon myself at that time to go through, my guidance counselor did have some books and different research opportunities that were never presented to me. Even knowing what I wanted to do. So I took it upon myself to look through this book, and I found a research opportunity at Johns Hopkins for the summer after my senior year. And I applied, and I had to go through an interviewing process, and I believe it was maybe about 300 students, give or take, and I was one of the 2 that were selected. And my thought was, well, this pediatric neurosurgeon that I so loved and admired works at Johns Hopkins. So this is my end. This is my opportunity to finally meet this man and shake his hand and give him a hug or something. So once I got there, I was actually at the university, which is different from a little bit of, not too far from the medical center, but it is separate. And so, no, I didn't get a chance to see him, but that was something that I was able to put on my resume or curriculum vitae. And just have the opportunity to see other things and be exposed to research and how that actually works, and knowing that, okay, this is something that I also want to be involved with and continue to do. So that then just gave me more push and incentive to continue on. And even if I don't have someone in my corner other than my parents, I know I can still do this. I can do my own research and find opportunities that are available to me. And they did. It continued on. Even in college, I did the same thing. And I was told the same thing by my counselors when I told them I want to go to medical school. I was told, well, your MCATs aren't that high. You might want to wait a little bit. I don't think. And I was like, no, I'm still applying. And I applied. I got in. Once I was in medical school, it was the same thing with my counselor there telling me, I told her, I want to do neurosurgery. I want to do a neurosurgery residency, which is very, very difficult to get in, I will say, to match. And I was discouraged and told, no, maybe you want to try something else, not neurosurgery. It's very competitive. It's going to be really hard. And I applied to 3 places, and I ended up matching at Duke and went on from there. And that was challenging in and of itself as well. Just being the only one of my kind there. And I was actually the first brown female to finish residency at Duke University Medical Center. So, and now behind me, there is now another brown female who I believe should be finishing either next year or in 2 years from now. So I feel like, yes, I've had my challenges and bumps along the way, and I wasn't always encouraged to do what I'm doing now, but I knew that this was a passion that I had inside of me. And I always tell people, how do you know what your passion is? And I always say, you know what your passion is when you can say, even if I never got paid a dime, which of course we have to, make money, you got to live, you got to eat. But if you never made a dime, if you never got paid for it, would you still do it? And I can honestly, truly say I would do neurosurgery if no one ever paid me. I would operate on baby brains, so my one friend says. And I love it. And so when you know that something is your passion, you know that that's what you've been called to do, nothing should stop you, nothing should hinder you, nothing should get in your way. All the no's, all the naysayers should push you even harder, because it should be, I'm going to prove to these people that this is what I'm called to do. And when you have that passion and you have that drive, it comes automatically and things just begin to happen. So for the person who has been discouraged and who has been told that they can't, or that they're not going to achieve that passion that's inside of them, I would tell them, and I would encourage you to continue to stay at it. You can achieve it. And, not all the time are you going to pass every test. But don't let that discourage you. Don't think, well, I didn't pass this test, so I guess I'm not going to be a doctor. No, you work harder at it so that you do pass it. Have I passed every test the first time? No, I didn't pass every test the first time. But that didn't discourage me. It just caused me to work harder and to know that one test doesn't define whether or not you can be what you truly believe that you can be, but hard work, determination, that passion inside of you, that determines what you're going to be. That voice inside of you that's telling you to press on and to continue, that's what's going to determine what you're going to be and who you're going to be. It's not always going to be easy, but that which doesn't kill you, we've heard, it really does make you stronger. And I think the biggest, I guess for me, as far as my success goes, I judge my success off of how other lives that I've touched, other people that I have encouraged. That's how I judge my success. So when I see a student that comes back to me and tell me, Dr. Johnson, I got into medical school. Dr. Johnson, I got that scholarship. Dr. Johnson, I got into a neurosurgery residency program. Anything that they're excited about and that they have done, that I have actually played a role in that just by encouraging words, just by telling them, yes, you can, just by telling them, chase your dreams, chase your passions, don't give up. One failure does not make you a failure. One test grade doesn't decide your destiny. But you have to know that this is what you want to do. You have to know that this is your passion. This is what you've been called to do. So I just encourage anyone and everyone to follow your dream. You have one life to live, and live it to its fullest. There's plenty of people in the grave who didn't live their dream, didn't fulfill their dream, that have so much potential inside of them. But if you don't use it while you're alive, no one will ever know. And there will be so many lives that will go untouched, and so many people that that could be great just because of you, just because of something you said, something you did. So no matter, even if it's not pediatric neurosurgery, whatever your passion, whatever your dream, continue, go after it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. And if no one else tells you that you can, you tell yourself, yes, I can.
My name is Dick Batchelor, and I was raised in Orlando, and many people ask me why I was not leaving here, and I just feel like I'm part of the fabric of the community. I saw a lot of things growing up in Norte Vista and Pine Hills, and I saw that people were really almost miniaturized and didn't have a lot of influence. So I figured, well, if I get elected, they can have influence. Sometimes you get frustrated when you can't convince your colleagues in the legislature to do what you think is right, but defeat was never good for me. In fact, I take it as a motivation, so I go back at it until you win. I've been most proud of a number of things dealing with children. I wrote the child abuse law in the state of Florida, domestic violence law in the state of Florida, helped set up child protection teams to look at children who were being abused. And so dealing with children and touching lives like that means the most to me. Well, I've been blessed in so many ways, and with some talents to be involved and successful in public service. And then after leaving the legislature, my question was, how can I now use and leverage that influence to do good in the community? So it's always been my pleasure and a blessing. So it's not a burden when somebody calls on me. It's really a compliment to me, asking me if I could do something to help, and I'm always there to try to help. Well, I mean, I'd be dishonest to say it wasn't hard. It is hard, but you got to have faith, and you've got to forge ahead. My mother, who you mentioned, did pass away just 3 weeks shy of 92 years old, but when I go visit her, it's a motivation to keep going because I know she worked hard for me, so I need to work hard for the community. I think I've done a share of what needs to be done in the community, and I could walk away and turn my back on it, but it wouldn't be me. It's not what I've grown up to be. It's not what I was taught to be. So as long as there's a fight out there, I want to be involved in it in some way and win. It's a real honor to be seen in a position where you can help people, and it's a blessing to know that you have some of the tools, some of the talents it takes to try to be helpful to those people. Recently I was asked what really makes a leader, and I said, I think a leader is somebody who has influence but doesn't leverage the influence to do something good for the community. So that's my definition of leadership. I've been involved in public life and the public sector for some time, probably 40 years now. And I always say it's a blessing to have that opportunity and a gift to give back. So if you have that gift, pass it along, give it to somebody else. You'll be glad that you did. I've done it, I'm much stronger because of that.
My name is Gina Garcia. My story, I guess, came to be after years of not understanding why I wasn't being successful in my business and my relationships with my family dynamics. I dove into therapy, and it was because of a hate crime. I was actually a victim of a hate crime and started having flashbacks, and I couldn't understand what they were. And what we came to as a conclusion, is I was actually abducted when I was a child from the Fashion Square Mall, which is right down the street. And I couldn't get the person that took me 25, now 35 years ago, out of my head. The person that assaulted me as a child, I was 8, was still dictating my entire life. And I was tired of it, to be honest with you. What got me to the point of making a movie and going through that journey is something that happened to me as an 8-year-old affected my entire adult life. And I'm better than that. And so for me, I just decided one day that enough's enough, and I dove into therapy at the VA, Orlando VA, and met a great group of women that were also dealing with the challenges of PTSD, and said enough's enough. And at the end of that journey, I said, I'm going to tell my story, because the story that I had, I always knew something wasn't quite right or something happened, but I wasn't quite sure as to the extent of what happened as far as the assault. And I just said, if I could get through this, and I didn't know there were services or things that I could actually come to terms with as far as with people, that there has to be other people that are going through a similar journey. Not everybody's abducted by a stranger, but there are so many survivors of childhood sexual abuse. There's 1 billion people that have survived childhood sexual abuse that are on this planet. It's 1/6 of our planet. And we named it the film Untold is because that's the untold story, is the damages that are caused that later in life that sticks with you, and it's painful and it sucks. It sucks because it winds up tearing apart your relationships. And we need relationships. We're not on this planet alone. It's great to be able to have a partner and be able to have a conversation with them and not thinking that you're the dirty person. So Untold wasn't about me telling my story. The goal was to tell a universal story that many people could relate to. I don't know if it was necessarily suppressing it. I was disassociating. So it was the not being present, but it wasn't knowing that it wasn't like an intentional thing where I was like trying not to be present or push it away or things like that. I didn't know it was an issue. It's kind of like you wake up one day and go, something's not right. And I didn't know really what it was until I started, digging deeper into finding out what my reality was. I always knew somebody had abducted me as a child. It was the issue of what happened, which I blocked out. Nobody wants to recall and remember the nasty part of what's happened to them as a child or as an adult. Whether it's rape or childhood sexual abuse, it's all dirty and nasty and disgusting, and it's not the people that it happens to, it's the people that are doing it are the dirty, nasty, and the ugly. And the people that it's happening to, like myself, I had to realize that I'm a beautiful person and that I'm amazing and that the person that took me, I don't want to cuss, but is a piece of shit. And that's the reality, is that I was taking who that person was and thinking that was me. And I was looking at myself of, I'm a piece of shit. And I didn't want to be that person because I knew I was a good person. Whatever it is that affects you, that was caused by somebody else, know that it isn't you. That you are beautiful and you are amazing and you will get through this because you are not only a survivor, but you are a thriver. And life matters, and your life matters. And the holiday season is tough, and we want people that are close to us. But there are people that are out there. There are services that are out there. And the only way that you could actually get through this is by talking about it. And don't be ashamed to tell people, because people are more understanding than you think they are. Untold is my story and the story of so many others.